Yo, my friend, welcome to another episode of the Pixelists, where we like to talk about games, movies, shows, all things nerdy. I'm Will. That's my boy Blake.
What up?
And we're here to talk about some Critical Role today.
Bro, when are we going to talk about a game is what I want to know.
I know.
Like, we're like multi-months deep into this, and I mean, it's just, what are we going to talk about? When's the game coming up?
You know, we technically talked about games done quick, so I feel like that bought us a little bit of time. You know?
Okay, yeah.
Just a little bit.
mean, yeah, sure. I guess people know you by the content you make, so I guess we don't have anyone who's like, you know, where are the games? Since we've never put out a game video, but yeah, we're gamers who don't talk about games, apparently.
Yeah.
But
one day.
Yeah, one day. Yeah, we cover all of our nerdy hobbies we like to talk about, which is typically a lot of Marvel stuff and a lot of D&D. We love D&D.
Yeah.
So that is ideally what brought you to today's video, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
You being the random person who's watching this. Hello, welcome. So, yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, we got a lot to talk about today.
Yeah, long episode.
Yeah, it was like 5 hours long, episode 11, just for reference. And in addition to that, we also have the freaking Legend of Vox Machina that's premiering this week.
Yep.
Friday.
Right.
I actually get to see it early tomorrow. So if you want to watch it with me, you can.
How?
Because I was a Kickstarter backer.
Oh,
so
man.
I get to watch the first 2 episodes, but the first 3 are premiering Friday. So like,
right.
There's still going to be new stuff even for Kickstarter people on Friday. So super hyped about that. You know, long culmination of like everything is that show. So
do you have any like fear of it being bad?
I don't have fear of it being bad, but
Yeah,
I do like, I don't know that it could possibly live up to the expectations. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, I mean, I hope it's amazing. It's going to be one of those shows that I like regardless.
mhm.
Like, we haven't done our Witcher video yet. Man, we have so many videos, by the way, to do.
Yeah,
We
I
need to
know.
do the Witcher one. We need to do, we hit 500 subs on the channel. So we need to do that, video on that, by the way. Thank you guys who've subbed to the channel. We got to do Vox Machina. We got to do our favorite like theories, which one of them that we mentioned last week ended up being true. There's a lot of video content that we got to make, by the way. So we just got to like set a day aside. But all that to say, like The Witcher, you know, I love The Witcher. And so just preview for the video we will make. You and I haven't talked about this.
Mm-mm.
Season 2, so good and so bad. So many just eesh. But I'm gonna like it because I love The Witcher,
Mhm.
you know. And so I feel like with Vox Machina, Legends of Vox Machina, you know, being a big Critical Role fan, being a D&D fan, regardless of quality, I'm gonna be like, yeah, I really like that. But I know you haven't seen Arcane. Arcane was like amazing. I don't know if I should go in with that level of expectations. So I don't know.
I have no doubt that it's going to be good, even great, I'll say. So like, I'm not worried about that. I'm just worried about like, I have the expectations for it being like one of the best things I've ever seen ever.
Yeah.
Just because of how like, you know, like emotionally connected. I mean, I'm a freaking Kickstarter backer of it, you know? So like that, I don't know if it could live up to that, but I hope it does.
You're expecting your life's like entire journey to change after. If that's the case, you might be.
Exactly.
This might be an
Exactly.
Yeah. So I mean, presumably we're gonna do. I guess what makes sense. Are they doing 3-3-3, or are they doing 3 and then 1-1?
I think they're doing
each week
3 every time. I think.
Okay,
So
it seems like
12 episodes. I actually don't even know how many episodes it is.
Okay, I thought it was 9, but that's again because I just watched Arcane.
Well, I know the first 2 that I'm getting like the early screening to are like kind of a self-contained story. They're not part of what campaign 1 was. They're like pre-campaign 1.
Right.
So it's like, and then after that, there's like the campaign 1 arc. So I want to say that like if the first thing is 2 episodes, then surely like that next section is also an even amount.
Right.
So maybe it would be
and
10.
I think Amazon's already booked a second season too.
Yeah, they have.
Yeah. So that's, man, they have a lot on their plate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But, not to, the Critical Role fans are, they love Critical Role. They love D&D just like we do. I shouldn't say they. I mean, we're part of this group. We did see via Exandria Unlimited that when things, and this has also been the case, and this is just through osmosis that I know this, that even in previous campaigns, when certain details don't play out as the fans want them to, people can be particularly opinionated. They can be particularly frustrated. And so I don't think I'm like nervous, so to speak. I'm just more expectant to see like some keyboard warriors come Friday night or Saturday. Yeah, Saturday morning, where people are like, why did you? It would have made so much more sense if you did this. And that's fine. I mean, I think that is the whole premise of our channel, is we get on and we talk about what we would have done differently or what we think about certain things. So like, I don't begrudge anyone for doing that. I'm just sort of already mentally preparing myself to see some of those.
That's fair.
Comments.
I mean, surely they're going to be there,
and that's every franchise. Yeah. That's not just Critical Role. Yeah. So anyway,
one more thing on this before we, spend too long here is, did you see the video that talked about all the actors that are going to be in it besides the Critical Role cast?
Bro, no, I saw you linked it, but I haven't. It's because the more I started watching of like little previews and stuff, the more I was like, okay, I feel like I don't know how good Arcane actually is, in the sense of I went in totally blind, hadn't seen anything for it, and I feel like that elevated. I didn't even know it was supposed to be good, and I feel like when I get too involved with the pre-content, like the little tidbits and drops, I feel like I go down this rabbit trail of like this being life-changing, and so I saw you shared it. I didn't intentionally not watch it, but I am kind of like subconsciously like I watched, they posted another like clip, like a little cut, I think like 2 days ago. And I watched like 20 seconds of it. And then I was like, okay, I don't want to watch this anymore. So yeah, I haven't seen that video though. That was my really long way of saying I haven't seen it.
No, that's fair. It doesn't really have any spoilers other than that, like, oh, this person is voicing this character. I mean, you don't know anything about the character. Do you care if I tell you a few people that are in it?
Yeah.
So, freaking David Tennant. Do you know who that is?
No.
He was one of the Doctor Who's. He was in Jessica Jones. He's been in a lot of stuff. We got Buster from Arrested Development
doing the OG Buster voice.
No, he's actually, I think, playing like a bad guy.
Okay.
And the other, we got Gina Torres, who is, from Firefly, and Stephanie Beatrice from Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Oh, yes. And she was a voice actor in something else. The only reason I know that is because my wife, we love Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and she voice acted something else. And my wife was like, it was so weird hearing her voice and her not being like, the dry, sarcastic character that she was in Brooklyn Nine-Nine. That's really cool, though. I didn't know that.
And a few other names that, like, I wouldn't be surprised if you didn't know, because I only know them through Critical Role. But Kari Payton, who played Ezekiel in Walking Dead, he's also a very prominent
around when I stopped watching. So
anyway, but so the people I haven't explicitly mentioned here, I'm not trying to disrespect, but I just wanted to hit some of the big ones.
They're definitely watching this video. How dare you?
But Anjali Bhimani is in it as well.
Oh, that's great. She's also, I think, in the One Shot Thursday, right?
Oh, yeah. I think so. Because, there's no new episode this week, right?
Right. They're doing a one shot, which I don't know the premise of the one shot either, by the way.
So when they did the Kickstarter thing, there were all these stretch goals that, like, if we hit this, then we'll do this. And, they broke all of them within the first 6 hours. Right. So they had to come think of new ones. And one of the ones they thought of was a guest battle royale. So like different guest characters from all the campaigns are going to come together. It won't be like in the canon, because that doesn't make sense. It'll just be like removed from canon.
It'll be Heroes of the Storm-esque.
Yeah, that's actually a good comparison. And they'll just fight. So it should be interesting. Some fan favorite guests are showing up for sure.
Yeah. Well, we're we're already 10 minutes into this video. We have a 5-hour episode to recap, which, gonna do our best to keep that short.
Yeah.
And then we still have to do our deep dive discussion. So for you guys, the viewers, we know your time is precious. So maybe we should just go ahead and jump in and talk about the recap. And then also, if you guys are watching just this recap right now, we do cut this out as its own video. At the bottom in the comments or in the description, is the full video if you want to see our deep dive discussion, so you can check that out. But let's talk about what happened in episode 11 of campaign 3 of Critical Role.
Ooh.
Do you want to start us out?
Yes, sir. And 2 really quick things before I jump in. Again, forgive us for, I'm going to try to be quick here, but like Blake said, 5-hour long episode, want to hit the highlights. And 2, just in case anyone's OCD like me, I don't know why there's this black bar on my, I got a green screen situation happening.
Yeah.
So just for anyone that's like triggered by that, know that I am too. I'm trying to fix it. Anyway.
Meanwhile, I can't even see it. So yeah.
All right. So episode 11.
Yeah.
So we pick up with basically Ira, confronting this party, asking them, why have you come to my workshop? He's being kind of
coy.
Yeah, coy with them. Mm-hmm. And Chetney says, we're looking for Gurge. And Ira laughs and kind of looks toward Gurge, is like, oh, you actually have friends? And then the rest of the party kind of, they were upstairs, kind of joined Chetney. And Ira's like, well, you found Gurge, so you can leave now. And Chetney's like, are you the Nightmare King? And he has this super creepy grin, and I think there's a cacophony of voices that start responding, and he says yeah, that's one of the names people call me. And he's like, okay, yeah, we're taking Gurge alive. And Ira's like, you'll have to take that up with Armand, because we need Gurge and his gift, and we need more volunteers actually. And Chetney's like, volunteers for what? And Ira says, oh, don't worry, it's nothing you can offer. And Chetney's like, are you sure about that? And starts ripping off his cloak. And while this is happening, Imogen tries to read Ira's mind, but she's met with this painful mental shock in response. And he's like, no peeking, you can't look in here. And he's like, y'all are really lacking in manners. And he's like, this is such a shame. And suddenly the door upstairs slams shut. And the party is told that there's something strongly fey in his movements, but he moves like an alien, kind of very strangely. And he stands up from his stool, and he's over 10 feet tall. His arms super long, almost draping to the ground. He's got these really creepy long fingers. I think Matt said that they're about 1.5 foot long each, and they kind of extend creepily to pluck the glowing stone that he was messing with. Right. From the table, and he tosses it to the ground, and this wave of energy comes out, and basically all the furniture in the room now animates to life, and we roll initiative. So this battle was kind of long. A lot of stuff happened. I'm gonna try to just hit the highlights here. Everyone kind of has their moments. Fern casts flaming spears, trying to damage everything. Ira casts this chain lightning ability that completely destroys 4 of them.
Yeah, it's 22 damage at level 4.
Yeah.
I think it was his first action.
Yeah. Right? It was, aside from animating the furniture. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And F.C.G does manage to transfer some of the suffering. He does that a few times throughout this fight. So from the jump, it's oh crap, this is a dangerous encounter. Dorian immediately casts Shatter and breaks the lock on Gurge's prison cell, so they can try to get him in on this action. And basically everyone is just trying to deal with this furniture that is attacking them. Orem does some dope fighter shit. He does a bait and switch maneuver with Imogen.
Naturally.
Increases her AC by 7, which is just crazy. And everyone's like, what? And so while this is happening, Chetney rips off the rest of his clothes, basically, except for his underwear. And he takes his chisel and kind of draws it across his pec, drawing blood. And while this is happening, Gurge transforms into a werewolf in his cell. And thanks to Dorian breaking the lock, is able to break free. The party keeps attacking the furniture. And Ira's like, okay, you know what? This is getting old. And I think Matt phrases it he's going to take the weights off. And so he says the air like shimmers around him and his limbs seem to stretch even longer. And then everyone around him basically has to make a save or else be frightened. And then a majority of the party actually becomes frightened of him, I think, except for Laudna, who is immune thanks to her dread presence. And this is maybe the highlight of the whole episode for me. Chetney looks up at Ira and, you know, he goes, I bet you think you're real scary. You think Gurge have a gift? Well, wait do you get a load of me? And then he's talks about his shoulders popping out and like his bones cracking. And basically he too transforms into a werewolf. And this is such an awesome moment too, because everyone was like, "Are you kidding me?" It was so great. and on top of that, they made his character portrait transform into a werewolf, and we find out he's not a rogue; he is in fact a blood hunter. So just an awesome moment all around. And when Ira is actually struck, Matt notes that blood does not come out, but a strange mist. And meanwhile, you know, the fighting is still going on. Fern attacks him, and he leans in and kind of smells her when she does that. And Ira's like, you know, you smell familiar, like home, like a Callaway. And we're like, what? And
which is Fern's last name.
Right. Thank you.
Watch EXU.
And now he's starting to get angry now that like these people are actually kind of bothering him and interrupting his work. So he kind of face steps into the middle of the party, transforms F.C.G into a turtle, and then like attacks Dorian and knocks him unconscious. But Dorian rolls a natural 20 on his first death saving throw, and so he immediately jolts back up with 1 HP. Then Ira lashes out at Orem and also knocks him unconscious. However, Liam also rolls a nat 20 on his first death saving throw and pops back up as well. And I think he even says, like, you know, I could do this all day, channeling Steve Rogers. So the battle continues. They eventually take care of all of the furniture and then focus on Ira himself. Fern throws an ice knife at him and he catches it and he goes, "You are a Callaway." And then more battle. Then he finally face steps, teleports again, and begins channeling this like energy in his hands. And he says, you know, like, this has been an absolute pleasure. But then he glances at Fern, and for some reason he stops. He stops channeling. He stops doing what he was doing. And he goes, you know what? I hate to leave work unfinished, but I have been paid half, and good times have been had, but I have other things to tend to. And he's like, I hope you guys survive so that we may meet again. And he dimension doors out of the room. So at this point, the party's like, what's happening? Like, it's chaos, basically. Orem and Laudna decide to grab any papers they can from this room and the desk. It's all like disheveled alchemical supplies and papers and stuff. So they grab what they can. They do see in one of the other prison cells, there's like this large, like kind of praying mantis type creature. And Gurge is like, yo, don't let that out. Let's go. Ashton does inspect the device, which the central device that was in the room, and it's like sparking, and he's like, yo, this isn't safe. Like, we need to get out of here right now. So Dorian grabs Turtle F.C.G. Everyone runs back upstairs into Vali's office, you know, back out the window. There is a wandering guard out there who sees this. You know, he sees this crazy party, including 2 werewolves, and Chetney just growls at him, and he's like, I'm out. And he just pieces out immediately. So they dart back to the courtyard, go back over the wall that they originally climbed over, scale that. Gurge and Chetney both transform back into their normal forms. And, both are basically naked, but get some clothes on. And suddenly there's this loud like hum and flash of blue, and everything goes silent for a second. And then there's this massive flash and an explosion of energy. And then these pieces of rubble begin falling from the sky, and the moon tower essentially has exploded. So they're trying to dodge the rubble, but Dorian and F.C.G. actually take a big hit. Dorian gets knocked out. F.C.G. gets knocked out of his turtle form, and but he heals up Dorian immediately. And they're like, okay, we got to get out of here, ASAP. And so that's actually where the episode goes to break. But when we return, the party is hopping on a gondola to get out of the core spire, just ASAP. Inside the gondola, Lawton is asking Gurge, she's like, what experiments was he doing on you? Like, were they successful? And Gurge says that, I had to bite 3 people. They wanted to steal my lycanthropy, essentially. And he reveals that no, he did not bite Chetney. He said he was locked up for just a few days. He didn't know who the volunteers were, but they were willing volunteers, and they looked like mercenaries, sellswords, armed very, highly armed to the teeth. Then they kind of ask him about his history, so he goes into that a little bit, saying that he is a retired wanderer, has been living in Marquette for about the past decade, was originally from Wildmount, was part of a band of hunters, but then he caught this disease, and he was basically thin away in order to get a handle on it. The gondola arrives, and they decide to head to the Weary Way Tavern. And once they get there, they basically rent a room that is large enough for them all to stay in together, and they immediately make their way to it. Once inside, Chetney apologizes to the party for not telling them the full truth, about his werewolfness and everything, and kind of reintroduces himself as a lichen. And he reveals that Gurge is in fact not a master craftsman, and he was not helping him find a new job, but he was helping him with his lycanthropy.
Right. Yeah.
Gurge used to run with this group called the Claret Orders, but he exiled himself, came to Marquette, and found a new group called the Gorgini. Now, I might be messing up with some of these names here, but they were also a group of hunters that were lichens, and they had learned to control their curse. So Gurge ran with this Gorgini group for a few years, but then said he had a falling out with the leadership. So he said basically Chetney came up and basically wouldn't stop bothering him until he finally agreed to help him out. And he reveals that he was going to introduce Chetney to someone named Ajit, but then all this craziness happened where he gets, kidnapped and everything. And also Gurge says that, I never transform in public, so I'm not sure how these people knew that I was a werewolf. And Dorian's like, you know what? Quick question. I thought lichens only transform during a full moon. And Gurge was like, yeah, it gets dicey around a full moon, but our blood magic kind of allows us a bit of control. But he does warn the party. He's like, hey, if y'all are going to be traveling with this guy when Ruidus is high, he's like, watch out. Things get kind of crazy when that happens. And they asked Chetney if he's been a lichen long, and he says he's relatively new. But, what does that mean for someone that's over 200 years old?
Right.
And he said after he was kicked out by the glass blades in Uthadern, he was out hunting in the wild, and he got bit by a wolf and had an altercation with the wolf. He then killed this wolf, and after he did, it transformed back into a human. And so he realized that, he was bitten by a werewolf. He says he's been able to keep it at bay and exert some control. But, he came to Gurge just to learn more. Gurge basically at this point is like, yo, I've had a rough few days. I'm going to bed. Please, nobody else bother me. He's like, Chetney, the moment you stepped into my life, everything went to shit. So I don't know anything else. Just go talk to Ajit. And tomorrow I'm going to go back to my place in the woods, and you guys are not welcome to visit me.
Do not come to me.
And Fern's like, well, we helped you. Shouldn't you give us something in return? And he's like, well, what do you want? And she's like, bite me. He's like, absolutely not. I took an oath. And as he's going to bed, they actually ask him one more time about Ira, and just what he knows about Ira, what he remembers seeing. And Gurge recalls seeing Vali, and he goes, I also saw the boss. And he goes, Ira, smelled weird. He smelled like the woods. However, it was sweeter and kind of unfamiliar. And Fern's like, what, smell me? Does it smell like me? And he's like, yeah, kind of. So they think it might be the Feywild that he was smelling. And finally, F.C.G. asks about Armand. He's like, tell me about this boss. And Gurge is like, I don't know. I just saw people, but he was tall, handsome, well-dressed, fancy clothes, fancy jewelry, wore blue and golds. And, that's all I know. And then finally he's like, all right, leave me alone. And he goes and curls up kind of like a dog and falls asleep. Do you want to take it from there?
Yeah, sure. So basically after he falls asleep, Chetney is pretty much like, hey guys, sorry for not giving the full story, which the party knew about. They asked him 50,000 times, okay, what's going on really here? They do realize that Ruidus won't be at its peak until a couple months from now, and so we have a couple of months so they see kind of what would happen at this point. Chetney mentions that he preferred to stay with the group because he has to demonstrate that he can basically play well with others, or he sort of curiously mentions that others will come for him, hunters will come for him, which was really interesting. Fern, after being shot down by Gurge, actually mentions to Chetney, like, hey, maybe you can bite me. And Gurge, seemingly from his slumber, says, if you do it, I'll hunt you down. So presumably there's some kind of oath that's taken that says you won't pass this on to someone else. Well, as the group's talking, they also decide to go through these papers that they took from Ira, and the papers are mysteriously blank. And they try all sorts of things. Chetney's like, does anyone have any lemon juice? They try holding it over fire, and like literally nothing happens. And this thing is just oddly clear at this point. So the party decides, okay, that kind of wraps things up for the night. Like, what else do we need to think about? And they kind of all agree. They're in the Lantern district right now, and the Lantern Spire. And they kind of all agree, you know what, we should probably stay away from the core spire as best we can for the time being. Especially since a guard saw us leaving the moon tower before it exploded. Right. This is around the time where Ashton mentions, hey, if we do need to get out of town, I do have a friend of mine, really someone that I've been working for, who has a job for us. And Ashton really shares this whole heist idea that's happening in the Heartmoor, which is about probably a 5 or 6 day walk and maybe a few days on horse. Matt does mention they could rent a Simurgh, but it would be extremely expensive, and they'd have to know someone to be able to do that. So they're sort of talking this through, and they're like, okay, if we're going to do this, if we're going to get out of town, let's kind of get all the things done that we need to get done.
Yeah.
Dorian, by the way, is like, okay, well, hang on. I do not want to miss the ball. And you remember, Dorian is like the royalty kind of person, and is like, we're not missing the ball. But regardless, the party's like, okay, let's just kind of like, what are all the things we need to, I guess all the loose ends we need to tie up, so that if we were to leave for the Heartmoor, we kind of have all these things taken care of.
Right.
So they kind of go through the list. They have the bet from Gianna Hexam, which is the whole premise to go to the Heartmoor. Mm-hmm. They have the ball. Orem still needs to meet with Oshad Breggio, the Anger, and Imogen still needs to go to the Starpoint Conservatory to, because Esteros was going to give her a letter to basically grant her entry to find out more about her gift. So they're like, okay, well, the ball's the top of the list. And also, as they're trying to plan this out, the ball is what keeps coming up as like the toughest, like scheduling wise. Mm-hmm. And so they're like, okay, let's just go talk to Esteros. So they go to Esteros, and they sort of, like several times they've been to Esteros, they sort of just, give all the info of like, here's the latest thing that's happened. And Esteros is like, you guys didn't have anything to do with the destruction of the moon spire or the moon tower, right? And we're like, yeah, that was us. Like, oops. And they're like, Imogen, tell him what happened. And so Imogen does this kind of dramatic retelling of the Nightmare King. And she especially mentions that he had a teeny tiny top hat, which he didn't, but that's kind of what they envisioned.
Yeah.
And they also talk about how it was him who was causing furniture to come to life, which Esteros mentions that actually the event they saw in front of the Spire by Fire wasn't the only time this has happened. It's actually happened a couple of times. He doesn't recognize Ira, but he does recognize Armand, and reveals that Armand is actually Armand Treshy of the Treshy House, which, remember, the Treshy House Masons were the ones who seemingly did some construction at the Dreamscape Theater where the Mimic was seemingly planted.
Yeah.
And the party starts to surmise, like, maybe Armand is creating like these sort of chaotic moments around town. Like, we've heard rumors of people saying that town's really like going south, and that maybe the Paragon's Call is this band of mercenaries that's potentially in his pocket, and he's basically he's creating all this insanity to make a power play to really put himself in control,
Yeah.
or something to that effect. And I think it's Laden who says maybe these three people who were bit by Gurge, potentially they were of the Paragon's Call. We don't really know, but that's really what they were thinking about.
Right.
So Estros does mention the ball's in 5 days. So it seems like it's going to be tough to do the ball after their Heartmorn travel, but it's still uncertain. But in the meantime, it tells Orem, hey, if you're ready, you can go see the Anger over in the Lucent Spire, which this is like where the noble houses are. And by the way, for your hard work, here's 5 platinum. Go treat yourself to a spa day, which seems a bit random, but it turns out there's a spa near the Loomis house, so they can kind of just treat themselves for all their hard work. Because they're looking they're looking pretty beat up and rough. So they decide basically, okay, yeah, let's go do our spa day. And Estros does, by the way, hand them like some new like cloaks and like dark clothing to kind of help them with just not, I guess, being so obvious.
Yeah.
Just so they can kind of travel a little bit more stealthily. So they end up heading that way. Chetney does hop into a store called the Prism Emporium and gets a new chisel because he had like thrown it at Ira or something.
Yeah.
Either Ira left with it or it blew up, or I don't remember. And then they go to the Diamond Horizon, which is this bathhouse where they have their spa day. There's a funny detail here where they have the 5 platinum, which is plenty to pay for the spa day for all of them. And Chetney is like, no, I want to pay for it. And they're like, well, why would you pay for it? And he's like, well, I lied to you guys and I need to, I owe you to get your trust back. And Ashton is like, we don't want you to buy our trust back. You need to earn our trust. And Chetney's like, no, I'd rather just pay for it.
Like, I'd much rather buy it.
Yeah, I'd rather just buy your trust again. But so he does pay for their spa day. And they all have a great time. I mean, Fern has a person who typically deals with animals comes and like removes like fleas and ticks from her and gives her like a bubble bath. Orem just waltzes around the place naked. Dorian and Chetney get a like full body deep tissue massage, which Chetney is basically like, that was the single greatest thing I've ever experienced. I had memories that I haven't thought of in years.
Didn't he like break down crying during it?
Yeah. And then there's also like a steam room or maybe even like a bath. I can't remember. And Laudna gets into it and then realizes that like her like body, like fingernails are falling off. And like we're like, ooh, Laudna, get out of the tub, please. So after the spa day, they head over to House Loomis. And it's here that they meet, I think it was Ella Loomis, the matriarch of the family, who introduces them to Ashad Breggio, who is still in his bed, wrapped in bandages, but healthy enough to sit up and talk to the party. Aura mentions that a man by the name of Jarrett in Whitestone was the mutual contact that told the voice of the Tempest about the attack on the Loomis house. And Ashad's like, oh, yeah, Jarrett was an old friend. We used to, kind of have journeys and adventures together.
Yeah.
But essentially what happened was the Loomis twins, Balin and I think Zaire, they were sort of these scholarly people. They really were interested in, they called them planar contacts, celestial bodies, stars, and what have you. And they were in the Heartmore because they were meeting with a retired astronomist to really, I guess, share information.
Yeah.
And basically while they were out and about, these 3 covered figures who were so covered they couldn't make out any of their features attacked them, and they had this incredible expertise and just efficiency that really amazed even Ashad and angered him. In hindsight of like, wow, it made him angry to think about like why did this happen really, and who are these people who were so deadly, I guess,
right,
with envenomed weapons and all these things. And he does mention that when one of them were slain, that they basically dissolved into like this black goop.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the twins were killed. Ashad, obviously, because these weapons were envenomed, had a very lengthy healing process. And basically, he didn't know anymore. But if they wanted to know more, Astani, the retired astrologist, apparently did like a full investigation and that would be the next best place to go. And Orm's kind of like, well, dang, I was really hoping there'd be more information.
Yeah.
And he reveals sort of the story we already know, that they had a similar attack in Zephyr. But he does tell Ashad, like, hey, I will get justice for both of us. So the party, again, they're going down their checklists. Ashton's like, let me go hop over to Gianna's house, tell him, what's going on. Gianna's not in. There's just a very rude door person instead.
He had a great voice.
Yeah. And Ashton basically is like, hey, just pass on a message that, Ashton came by with the new nobodies, because his old group was the nobodies and they skipped town. So like, these are my new nobodies.
Yeah.
And the party kind of likes this, and they're like, oh, that's kind of a nice name. It could be a potential name. We don't know.
Yeah.
But Doran actually has them practice announcing themselves, like arriving at the ball. If you think of like that, the speaker person, like when the guest comes in, they say, announcing these people. So they were practicing, and Laudanum is like, ooh, I want to try. And she does like this very creepy, kind of crazy, like, everyone bend the knee. And he's like, oh, no. That's not what an announcement is. And anyway, their last place to go is the Starpoint Conservatory, because Imogen was given this letter from Esteros. They go. Imogen is allowed to enter the conservatory, and it is almost like a massive library with students coming and going. She goes in alone. The rest of the party waits outside. Matt actually mentions that they wait for hours, actually, while she goes through books and studies and all sorts of things about dreams. She finds out all sorts of like, she reads about all sorts of things about like dreams in general, and particularly about storms, more specifically red storms. She does find one study by a person named Professor Khadija Sumal, and there's a list of people who contributed to the study, and one of them is Liliana Timmelt, which is her mother's name. Ooh. And that's where the episode ends. That is what happened in episode 11 of Critical Role's Campaign 3. Ooh. So,
well done.
Whew,
we made it.
Stuff.
We made it.
So, yeah, man, we're already like deep in this episode, but that's a lot to cover, a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
They didn't lollygag. I mean, they went kind of like boom, boom, boom from point to point. First thoughts, by the way, enjoy the episode?
Yeah, I love the episode. I mean, it's weird now that they're pre-recorded. Well, I don't know. It's kind of weird that they're pre-recorded, and one of the commands in Twitch chat is like runtime or like break or something. There's some command, and then respond like telling you the break is at this time, the episode is this time. So before the episode even started, people were like, "This episode is 5 hours long," and I was like, "What?" And so, I knew what I was in for. I actually didn't finish it Thursday, but finished it Friday. But I loved it. It was jam-packed. I know Matt tweeted afterwards saying that, like, hey, sorry that it was so long. We just kind of were having fun and lost track of time. And I think everyone was like, yo, don't apologize for that.
Yeah, give us more Critical Role, please.
Yeah, but anyway, to answer your question, love the episode. Felt like we got, so much. An amazing battle, learned a lot. Things are finally, some things are finally starting to like connect and getting a better kind of picture painted of the bigger story happening in Drusar. So very excited about that. Lots of stuff to dive into, but what did you think?
Yeah, I liked it a lot. I really enjoyed it. There's a lot of great, just added details. Loved the reveal of Chetney being a werewolf. That was an awesome moment.
That was so cool.
It was great. So many, them kind of going down the checklist of loose ends, just being like, okay, let's knock this out. Let's think. Because these were things that we've been waiting on for a long time. We've been waiting on the Starpoint Conservatory. We've been waiting on meeting the anger.
Right.
And, in some ways, none of it was a letdown. It was just, there was so much building up to meeting the anger, for example, that for it to be, I don't really know that much. You have to go here. It's fine. But it also was kind of like, and Orm even was like, oh, dang, I was kind of hoping like this would like solve it. Mm-hmm. So really liked that they were knocking out loose ends, but also I feel like there wasn't enough space for some things. Overall, really liked the episode. Ira, the Nightmare King, I was surprised that he was the Nightmare King. I think I mentioned in our last episode that it seemed soon that this person would already be the Nightmare King. It's a bit interesting of a character. First of all, Matt did an amazing job describing him. Even his like finger chain lightning was like so casually, casted, and really fun villain. But I mean, I say villain kind of with a bit of like pause because seems to know the Calloway family. Also, Nightmare King to me construes like a pure evil name. Doesn't necessarily seem to be that kind of character in the sense of, he mentions like, I've already been paid half. He clearly does work for pay. He's not just like a chaotic, watch the world burn kind of person, I guess. And also just sparing the party, obviously. That was really interesting. Anyway, I'm just like word vomiting all these different thoughts. I like the episode.
No, you made some good points. There's one thing I want to comment before we dive in to one thing you said about the anger and kind of like basically Orem not getting new information. I mean, they have a new lead basically, but nothing really new. I could understand, like, I 100% see how like a lot of people could be frustrated with that, but I kind of liked the I don't know if it's fair to call it a subversion, because I don't know if it's that big of a turn on its head, but I kind of liked that, like, you know what, he had a similar attack and he basically knows the exact same that Orem knows, it was like it was mirrored in that way, like, I mean, he was like, yeah, the same thing happened to me. We couldn't identify them, they immediately evaporated, like that's all we know.
Maybe this is like just kind of a good starting spot. It's just that particular meeting, just to kind of dovetail, just to kind of wrap it up, I guess. I think I don't know if people were frustrated by it. For me, it felt like I used the word spacing. Like, I didn't feel like there was the space there. Because here's what happened was we had so many comments from Esteros around, it's not time yet. It's not time yet.
Right.
You can't meet him yet. And so naturally as viewers,
it's building up.
We're doing an hour plus video on like what's really happening. Right. Yeah. So we have thoughts on like, is that before we knew Chetney, is that Travis's real character? Someone made a comment on our YouTube, maybe this is a guest character and they're working out scheduling. And it ended up being, like a 10-minute conversation via Matt on, I really don't know anymore. And in hindsight, I think it does make sense in the sense of if the next part of that journey of Orem's journey is in the Heartmoor, as a DM, it's totally normal to not want to. I mean, I guess it all comes back to like style, like stylistic choices as a DM. I know for me and my players, I want to give them the opportunity of choice, but I also don't want to, like, for example, my players in my campaign, they're in a town. There is stuff they can do in another town, but I'm not really giving them that breadcrumb yet because I don't want to distract them from what they're already invested in right now. That's my style. In hindsight with Matt, what it seems like is the next step is the Heartmoor. Maybe it's better. Hey, it's not time yet because it would be a fracturing of the story. It'd be distracting. Do we need to go to the Heartmoor yet? And now that we sort of have, Ashton finally meeting with his employer, Gianna, now maybe it makes more sense, is I guess what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, so. I agree. I think he's a pacing thing, really. I mean, at the end of the day. But, he just did it in a creative way. The man was injured and, yada, yada, yada. But yeah, I agree with everything you just said.
Any ideas on what we didn't get any new information, but again, the same creatures that just dissolve and melt into this black goo. D&D bestiary. I mean, anything come to mind here?
Yeah, I mean, this is where y'all in the comments could definitely help us out because I'm just not familiar enough with like the bestiary to fill in that circle to that peg. But it is interesting because I mean they're obviously like insanely high trained assassins, right? Like they not only easily cleaned up the anger, but they also attacked one of the most powerful people in the world in the Voice of the Tempest, like to assassinate her. Like, so that's no amateur stuff. I mean, they weren't successful, obviously, but
didn't you feel like the way Orem described it was maybe they were gauging defenses because it almost seemed like a doomed attack from the get-go?
Right. It was like trial run that he was saying, right? Like,
but then nothing ever came of it.
Right. And this was years ago.
Right.
And so now there definitely could be other attacks that we just aren't aware of that have happened. but you know, seemingly there's been this several year gap until anything similar has happened. So yeah, I just wonder what kind of plan has been orchestrated in on that time frame. I know a few people were speculating, and I personally don't like subscribe to this. Not, I don't think it's necessarily incorrect. I just don't know enough. But there was this one character in the second campaign that was this like badass assassin. And it's not fair to say that they let this person go. That the context was a bit more convoluted than that. And I don't want to give away spoilers, but essentially there was this assassin in campaign 2 that, you know, we know to be alive, let's put it that way. And now nothing about them really like indicated they would turn into goo or anything, but anyway, this is getting long-winded. Point is, I know a lot of people are like, oh, I bet it has something to do with that assassin from campaign 2 that is still out there.
Interesting.
So I just wanted to throw that out there for people that are, you know, interested in those types of little theories. But like I said, me personally, I don't really see the connection there, but it would be interesting if it was.
Yeah.
While we're on this subject, again, I don't really have anything else on as far as speculation as to who these assassins are. But one thing that that we've been speculating about regarding Orem is kind of, we know he was this guard in Zephyra, but then he leaves, and we know that, you know, he's been like a wandering traveler.
Right.
To me, the pieces kind of lined up finally this episode when he revealed that, like, yeah, this attack was years ago, and then he's like, then I left. And, you know, years later, you know, through Jarrett, through Whitestone, through this, we learned about this attack. And so I was, you know, asked to come investigate this. To me, I think it finally makes sense that perhaps his significant other, that person that we've always like speculated about, I think they were probably killed in that attack. Right. And that, like, you know, broke Orem in a way. And he was like, I gotta get out of here. I gotta do something new. So to me, like, whoever that person is, male, female, friend, lover, died in the attack. That spurred Orem to leave Zephyra, do his own thing. You know, he's had these adventures that we're aware of. And now that this attack has resurfaced, it kind of makes sense why they would send him, because he's got this personal connection to it, you know?
Yeah.
So
a passion for justice,
yeah,
you know, which he mentions even to Ashad. So yeah, I totally agree. I think you're so right. Yeah.
So, yeah. I mean, that's, at this point, that's really all I've got on this whole attack. But I did like that. I mean, that could end up being wrong, but to me, that makes sense. And so I was like, okay.
Let's Mephisto a little bit here.
Oh.
So we mentioned that the Loomis twins were interested in like astrology, planar contacts. I don't know what that means, by the way. Planar contacts.
I'm so glad.
Celestial bodies. Okay, yeah. Going real deep dive. We know from EXU, talking to one of the sages, I guess.
Right. In Niralpak?
Yes, that's right. In Niralpak, that there had been a bad omen coming from the moons.
Right.
And that, and definitely like sort of a running trend in EXU for you guys who didn't watch it, is like this sense of something large and dangerous is coming to Exandria.
Right.
It's, and the best analogy I can give is if you watched Marvel, like the little stinger at the end of movies where Thanos is kind of, you know, popping up, like that level of like something is happening. Something is coming to Exandria that, or something's rising up in Exandria that can be horribly deadly or catastrophic even. So in Nirdalpak, one of the characters basically mentions that there's a bad omen, and almost seems to imply that this person's city is doomed even. So all that to say, could there be some kind of connection with the Loomis twins in having discovered something, having seen something, figured something out, with something astrology wise or with the moons or what have you, that got them killed? I don't know. That's kind of my deep theory.
No, that's interesting. I mean, that makes perfect sense. I don't know why I didn't even think about why they were killed, but they could have been onto something, right? I'm glad you brought this up, because I forgot about the whole astrology connection, and I wanted to talk about that too. Which to on a more meta level, the two moons of Exandria have always just been so fascinating to me. And Matt, at like in all three campaigns, like so even back several years ago in campaign 1, and again in campaign 2, there would be little moments where like just certain NPCs that were like scientists or whatever would maybe like kind of lore drop about the moon, and it was always just fascinating, especially because there are two moons and one is way smaller and has like a 6-month cycle or whatever. So there's always been these like super crazy theories from the fan community about like what the hell these moons are. Like, is it not a moon? Like, is it like a sentient, like is Ruidus like a sentient being or like an
It's
egg
like
or
a
something?
Death Star. It's like it's like the villain from Fifth Element. Like the big rock that's just encroaching.
Yeah, exactly. So I love, love, love that like this is taking a forefront in this campaign, via the Loomis twins investigating it. Like, I mean, Ruidus itself has come up like several times in this campaign. I mean, Orem has a tattoo of it. We now have a werewolf in the party that in a way has like a direct connection to these celestial bodies. So I just love that like we're probably going to get some answers to this campaign. It might be nothing. It might just literally be a rock in the sky, or maybe it is something crazy. But I'm just super excited. There's also been these spelljammer theories, which if you're not familiar with that, it's kind of like to put it like really simply, like space travel in D&D. Like spelljammers are like spaceships essentially. And again, crazy theories throughout all the campaigns that have included that type of stuff. So I'm just really excited to see that like we may actually get into that territory here or soon.
Yeah.
But to circle all the way back around, I think you're onto something with the Loomis twins, being fascinated with all that stuff, and maybe were killed because of it.
Yeah, and we didn't really get to know if they were killed before their meeting with Astrani or after, or if maybe they were there long term. And I mean, regardless, it is really interesting for sure.
It does seem like, originally we were wondering which of these pieces were connected as far as like all the things happening in Drusar, the Mimic, Now, for your money, do you think this is separate from Armand and those things, or do you think this assassination could still be part of the machinations of?
So yeah, I think it could be something grander, like astrology wise, astronomy wise. I guess astrology. One of them is like the pseudoscience.
Yeah, astronomy is the real one, I think.
Yeah. Our deep fans of astrology in the comments are like, they're both real.
How dare you?
Yeah, I could see that being something like from a grander narrative, but also keep in mind that Matt does mention that the Loomis house sort of tries to keep order politically across the houses. And so there is like this big political element to it.
True.
The obvious answer, which I'm always a fan of going with the obvious answer, is they were killed to sort of keep sorry, my kid's crying in the background.
Can't hear it.
Because I muted it because she's screaming pretty big. Why don't you take over for a second while I mute?
Yeah. So what is interesting is we did find out a bit of the hierarchy from Estros. He was saying that the Treshy is one of the top 5 like most powerful Mahan houses, and he said the Loomis house was kind of like a step below that. They weren't, I think he mentioned that they weren't like really too concerned with the power plays. I may be making this up, but I feel like he said that. And so that information combined with the fact that this astronomy angle makes me think that maybe their death is not connected to Armand's machinations. I mean, it easily could be. Like maybe he was a threat, or the Loomis twins were a threat to something he was doing.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna. I kind of like the grander narrative of that assassination and this assassination on Keyleth maybe being something else entirely.
Yeah, which I did like. Yeah, it does feel like a lot of things are coming together. We found the explanation for the furniture, but we also found out that Armand Treshy, which I texted you at that moment, was like, Armand Treshy? Oh my gosh. Like, big detail. Could be, like you said, wanted to sort of deal with the Loomis house maybe they were getting a bit sticky or too interested or what have you. It does seem like the Loomis house had a connection with Lord Esteros, maybe even a vague connection, because Laudna even mentions like, do you have a soft spot for
Right.
Miguela or whatever her name is, the matriarch. But yeah, and it seems like Armand. I mean, I don't even know where to start with him. I mean,
the first
we
thing,
have the attack. Go ahead.
This is just a complete randomized. The first thing that I thought of was Hawkeye, because the character's name was Armand in Hawkeye as well.
Right. Watch him be that exact character too.
Anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, who's this Armand fellow? It was kind of unclear if he's like the leader of the Treshy house or just like, one of the players of the Treshy house.
Good point.
But like you said, one of the most influential houses. Lord Esteros mentions that he and Armand have sort of traded blows over the years in terms of like disagreements and in terms of what's best for Dressar. We know that he seems to be creating super soldiers on the side.
Yeah.
By having these soldiers bit by Gurge. What's going on here?
I don't know. I didn't even have this thought. I think you mentioned it earlier though, and it clicked for me, is that maybe those were members of the Paragon's Call. And maybe
Laudna mentioned it. That's why I thought that, because Laudna actually mentioned it.
I guess I missed that in the episode. But that lines up to me, like, because we already know that there was that flyer in town calling for like institute the Paragon's Call, like, the government sucks or whatever it was, which is an actually interesting. Sorry, I'm realizing this as I'm speaking. But Armand Treshy is we don't know who members of the Quorum are, but he is supposedly one, right? So it would be.
I don't remember if it was like, if he was like confirmed for sure. I think we know one of the identities, like absolutely, but I don't remember that person's name.
Okay.
I don't think it was Armand though.
Okay. Well, maybe he's not, but I guess even if he was, he could still like disagree with how they're doing things and want to be like overthrowing that. But anyway, it would make sense to me that since we know that some group is calling for the Paragon's Call to be given power, that
he could be the leader of the Ivory Syndicate.
True.
Because we know the Chande Quorum seemingly seems to be in cahoots with the Ivory Syndicate in some way.
Right.
Either infiltrated by them or allowing them to do whatever they're doing. That's a breadcrumb we haven't really seen pop up at all since the start of the campaign.
True.
Did I cut you off though?
I was just, I don't know if you did or not, but what I was saying was just that it would make sense to me, all these different things happening in the city to undermine, kind of deteriorate things enough to where the Paragon's Call is allowed. And so therefore, then it makes sense that those three people that were bitten were maybe members, and he's,
right.
just creating these super soldiers to grab power or something.
Right.
That at least, I don't know if that's the case, but that at least connects the dots for me, know?
Yeah.
What is kind of interesting is that for Ira, we don't really know, like, he's clearly being paid to do these experiments, and it seems like that's as deep as his connection goes. I mean, I guess we don't know, but it seems like to him this is just a way to make money doing weird shit that he likes.
Ira's a bit of a weirdly designed character because you have like this side that is like the Nightmare King, very creepy, methodically dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
And he makes the comment to Volley like, you have no idea the web of
that's
like that seems to be someone indulging in his evilness. And then on the other side, you have, I've already been paid half. Like, I got other stuff to do. Oh, you're a Callaway? All right, yeah, cool. No worries then. Misunderstanding. See you later. Like, there's a bit of a duality there that I don't know if that's just, I don't know if it's just like a mistake in developing his character or if it's just a very complex character. Because his final comments would make you seem like he is like, yeah, I did my job. I got people bit, kind of. And even like with Gurge is like, that's just kind of like a side project. We have other stuff we need to work on right now. So there's that side of it, but then there's also like sort of the casual, all right, guys, well, time for me to go. I got my money. See you later. So I don't know.
I got two things on that. First, you brought up something I wanted to mention. The whole conversation he had with Volley where he was like, you don't even know the web of things, right? Given that we know, based on what he said and stuff, that this, like, he's been paid half, like, I'm out. To me, that seems like this was just a job he was doing, like singular, for whatever reason. So then I'm wondering, that web comment, was that in reference to what Armand is doing, or is that something else entirely that the Nightmare King is working on that is not connected to this political?
Yeah, it could have been just a, like, you don't even know, like, all the things I've been doing. Like, you're part of, like, this really one detail.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I have a basement office, in your, behind your bookshelf. It definitely could be like, hey, your boss Armand, who is presumably the patron that was mentioned.
Right.
He's got me doing a lot of stuff right now. So just, like, relax.
Okay.
Or it could be,
okay.
Or it could be like the super evil, like, you have no idea all the things that I'm doing. I think from the characterization we saw in this last episode, I'm thinking maybe the former.
Okay.
So I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of hope it's the latter, that he's got his own motivations and his own kind of things spinning behind the scenes. I think that would be more interesting.
Think you have to, right? Otherwise, it's a bit of a weird character. You're called the Nightmare King, and you're getting paid for odd, I won't say odd jobs. I mean, it's clearly evil stuff, but it's like, hey, dude, can you do me a favor and start, like, making furniture come to life? That'd be really helpful. Yeah, sure, that'd be 1,000 gold. All right, thanks, man. Like,
well,
it's like a contract villain. I don't know. It's
even
a
evil
strange.
people need money to make things happen.
Sure. Does he though? I mean, if he's this, like, crazy character from the Fae, I mean, seems like I would assume he's pretty resourceful.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. And so on the second part here on his characterization, I think he is the evil Nightmare King, and I think that the kind of parts where he kind of is going against that is just because of this Fern connection that we just really don't know enough about. Like, I think he could still be this evil Nightmare King figure, but maybe for some reason he's got this soft spot for Calloway's. Maybe he is one, like,
that's interesting.
I don't think it's like her dad. Like, we know Fern's parents are missing. Like, I don't think it's that close of a connection.
And that's a good little detail. Again, for people who didn't watch EXU, you didn't watch our video on what you missed in EXU. Fern, basically, her parents left at a very young age. They've been gone. Her grandmother watched over her. And this was a detail from EXU. I don't know if it's going to be actual, like, retconned or if it'll be the case, but she basically was given letters from her parents being like, hey, we're traveling, everything's great. And it was revealed in EXU that her grandma basically was writing those letters herself and giving them to Fern. So that's the detail for those of you guys who are like, what's going on with Fern and Calloway or what have you. Yeah.
So, I mean, to me, I think there's clearly something going on there. Like, maybe even he knew her grandma or something. Like, to me, and I could be completely wrong, like, we'll find out. I do think the kind of the contrast and the moments he had is a little bit, jarring. But to me, I think he is a dark, evil figure, and just for some reason there's this connection to Fern that, because I mean, he was seemingly going to kill them, and then he hesitate and stops and is like, oh, you know what, Fern, he looks at her or something. So I'm super interested to find out what that connection is, and what he's got going on behind the scenes, if it's unrelated to the Armand plans.
Yeah, I will say I really liked the fight with Ira, but I don't know how to describe this. Like, it's a bunch of people playing D&D. Like, you're having a good time, you're having fun. Mm-hmm. The party, like, this is obviously, I mean, he started out with 22 damage to 4 of them. We already knew that they were going in with very few spell slots, totally underprepared.
Right.
And the party even mentioned, like, jokingly several times, like, yeah, we're probably dead. Like we need to leave, right? Like, we just need to get out of here, right? I will say it didn't feel like the stakes were quite there. And I don't know if that ever does that ever happen in a Critical Role campaign where it's like, this fight is really intense and really serious? Or is it, I guess this is more of like a behind the scenes question. And I don't have it's a weird question to ask because I don't have a problem with how the fight went down. I was more of just thinking like, hey, this is the first like big encounter I've seen happen in Critical Role, and was not lackluster. It was really fun. I really enjoyed it, but also story wise, I was thinking like, okay, yeah, this isn't really a heavy encounter, I guess, that as I was anticipating. Does that make sense?
Yeah. To answer your question, yeah, there definitely are. I mean, I think in this case, they weren't really aware of the stakes. They didn't know what they were going down into that basement to face. They don't know who Ira is. So I think that they like were ignorant to maybe the threat level. And so that's why maybe it was a little bit more lighthearted, if that's kind of what you're getting at. Like if people weren't like maybe taking it as seriously as maybe they should have, type of kind of vibe. I think that's why. But yeah, absolutely. There are like, oh shit, this is real moments in Critical Role. Like, you know, when you're coming up against things. I think it's easy just to paint it as kind of ignorance here. And, you know, the party's still young and new and not really sure what they're doing. So I think that could maybe be why it didn't really feel like it was at you know, a certain level of, I don't know the right word here, but danger or something. I don't know.
Yeah, just a random comment I had, really. But
yeah, I mean, he did. I mean, if not for those nat 20 death saving throws, like honestly, who knows what could have happened.
Yeah, that was an awesome. Those were both awesome moments.
Yeah, that's just so crazy that they happened like literally back to back too.
And then they both had to. Well, Dorian had to stealth roll then to roll away,
right?
Scoop up,
grabbed up F.C.G.
Scoop up F.C.G.
That was great.
Which F.C.G. also had a great moment after Chetney did the werewolf reveal on F.C.G.'s turn. Him being like, you see F.C.G. start to sprout hair, and you know,
oh yeah, that was
he's
great.
like, I'm just kidding. Never mind.
Just everyone's a werewolf in the party.
But shout out, by the way, to where are these comments? We had a few people who pointed out.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just say, like I mentioned, just Chetney transforming. Mm-hmm. There were a few people in our comments who actually said, like, hey, maybe Chetney's intrigue with Gurge is that he's also a werewolf.
Yeah.
And so just want to say shout out to those people.
Kudos.
Actually, I'll look for them right now, those people, so we can give them proper credit. But
all right, while you're doing that, there's one other thing I wanted to mention on the whole Ira Calloway thing. The party asks Fern about that, like after the battle, and she says something very interesting. She says, we're very, very famous in the Fae. And she just leaves it at that. So, yeah. I mean, that's all I got. We already kind of spoke on it, but I just am wondering what's going on there. What's the connection? And I mean, I guess that means that, you know, maybe even if Ira is not like directly connected to the Callaways, maybe he's just aware of their fame for whatever reason they're famous and didn't want to kill the Calloway daughter or something. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I think you're right. By the way, going back to these comments, there were 4 people. Amok2 said, I'm guessing Chetney is infected with lycanthropy and Gurge was supposed to be like his mentor or something. LOL. So casually stated. Like, yeah. And then the other people who mentioned it, Ryan Weaver said, I really like the theory that Chetney's a werewolf. He has a strength of 17. Remember, if you accept the curse, you don't suffer the uncontrollable full moon rampages. And then Paul Savas said, perhaps they're both lycanthropes, and that's why Gurge and Chet are trying to meet. The one I really liked, though, was from Aaron Ginsberg. He said, basically, I don't know why people have moved off of Travis's playing a werewolf theory. He used what appeared to be a blood hunter Order of the Lycan ability called Heightened Senses to make sure he was alone in the office. And Matt didn't have him explain what he was doing, which would have been a dead giveaway for something so secret. Chetney's rationale then for meeting up with Gurge makes no sense. As you and the cast have pointed out, surely someone in Wildmount could have used a carpenter and he wouldn't have to move continents just to find work.
Right.
It's plausible there wasn't another werewolf to teach him how to control his powers in Wildmount. Hats off to all of you guys.
Yeah.
Really great job.
Very well done.
Yeah.
Keep them coming.
Keep them coming. Yeah, we're still going to do our video on our favorite theories in the near future, maybe like episode 12, 13, or maybe even 15, who knows. Probably when we have like an off week, I guess. So yeah, keep them coming. It's just great to it's great to see people put out these comments and be like, oh my gosh, that was totally right.
Yeah.
So anyway,
absolutely.
What else? Anything else you want to talk about?
I've got random tidbits, and I'm trying to I'm just trying to think about over there's got to be other stuff. This is such a long episode. So one random tidbit, a couple things on Aurum that I wanted to mention. One, you mentioned it in the recap how when they're at the bathhouse, he was just kind of waltzing around naked, but he was with his sword and he was like practicing, his movements. Yeah. I just love Liam's attention to detail with little like subtle moments like that. He did something similar in EXU in kind of just like a very like downtime moment. He was, he called attention to the fact that, I go aside and I stand in front of the statue and I practice my movements. Right. I just love how that paints his character of this quite literally fighter that, that's kind of like how he centers himself, how he, I just loved it. And I love that that's the second time he's done that. And I expect him to do more kind of flavor moments like that.
Yeah. Right.
And then also on the Aurum thing, you texted me about this, so I did want to mention it. Jarrett, for those of you that
everyone in the chat went crazy. They were like, Jarrett. I was like, who is Jarrett?
Yeah. For those of you that didn't watch campaign 1, Jarrett is character from campaign 1. One of my favorite little like NPC characters, and he's actually going to be in the Legend of Vox Machina. They revealed that they're kind of switching up his role a little bit, which is to be expected when they're translating things to this new format. But in campaign 1 he was basically a guard. Again, I don't want to like spoil anything, not that it would, but I won't go further than that. But he was just an ally, a guard. That was just always a fun NPC. So it was really fun to hear his name again. And, know that he's, I guess, still around, and still communicating with these characters and stuff. So, for those of you that were wondering who the heck Jared is, he is from campaign 1.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Anything else?
Let me just go through really quick. I did another little moment that I just thought was funny at the Prism Emporium when Chetney was buying his chisel and he was clearly getting ripped off by the guy. Yeah. He was like, "What's your name?"
Yeah,
like making a list to
and someone else was like, "That was very Dexter of you."
Yeah,
that was really funny.
That was great. And then, all right, two other little like small topics I want to just touch on. The first being really just to kind of clarify the history we got with Gurge and this whole werewolf thing, because there were a lot of names mentioned. I'm just trying to make sure I parsed this out correctly. So Gurge was with a group of hunters.
Yeah,
the Claret Order. And that was before he was a werewolf, right?
Right. Yes.
Then he gets bitten or whatever, and he leaves.
Right. Comes to Marquette.
And he joins this Gorgini order, which they're a group of werewolves.
They're also hunters, but they are hunters, right?
Okay, and so then then it's mentioned he has a falling out with them, and
years before,
and then starts living his wild man life or whatever.
And Lada even asks, "What was your falling out over? Do you want to tell us more?" And he goes,
he doesn't tell, right?
And then also Ajit Dial in the Core Spire, who he tells them to meet, which I don't remember like where he said to meet them, but Chetney's like, "Yeah, can I mention you sent me?" And he's like, "No, don't mention I sent you."
Okay, yeah. So I was gonna say, do you think Ajit is a member of the Gorgini?
Might be. I'm not sure. Yeah, that's a good question.
Then, okay, I want to parse that out, and I guess we don't know what Ajit is, but I was wondering if we did know. But so, I mean, that's my best guess, is that maybe he's a member of that. But the hunters that both Gurge and Chetney referred to about like, yo, if we bite somebody, if we get out of control, like they're gonna come get us.
Right.
Is that the Gorgini, or is that some third hunter organization that like
I think, I don't know if it's the Gorgini.
Yeah, sorry if I'm totally butchering it, I'm sure.
Because it seems like Chetney is maybe even wanting to be connected to them. Like, hey, like send me on my way kind of deal.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't seem like he's encountered them before. I would assume it is like a third group. I wouldn't think it's like the Claret order, since
Right, they don't seem to be connected to.
well, since he like, hey guys, I'm gonna go take care of this. Maybe they didn't know. So yeah, maybe it's like a third group. You know, like I can't think of a good example, a good analogy, but destroy all monsters, even if they have good intentions. Or at least maybe like a Witcher-esque, like, hey, make sure you're good, or we're gonna. I don't know. Yeah, I have no idea.
Yeah, I mean, if it's the Gorgini or not, if it's someone else, I'm fascinated by that. Like, who is this group that's out there, like, keeping tabs on werewolves and probably other wares and other vampires and other stuff like that? Like,
did one of them sell out Gurge? Because he mentions that someone must have known that he was a Lycan, because he says he's never changed in public.
Right.
He said someone had to have known that it was me.
And how would they know if Chetney or Gurge like bit Fern? You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, unless it just like Fern attacks somebody as a werewolf.
There's got to be like a full-time job to like, you know, Pepe Sylvia-esque of like connecting dots and like, where did this person come from? And I guess in order that they want to make sure that this curse is kept under wraps. Which, speaking of order, is the Claret order, is that, I know they're from Wildmount. Were they in campaign 2 at all, or is this
if they were, I don't remember. That didn't ring any bells for me, but it's totally possible that they were, and somebody can let us know. But yeah, I just wanted to mention that because this whole organization that keeps a leash, if you will, on these mythical creatures is fascinating to me.
Pun intended.
Yeah, and it seems like they are pretty scared of them. And that may not be the right word. I mean, maybe Gurge just doesn't want to give anyone else the disease, but he's like, no, I can't do that. Like, they'll come get me.
Right.
So, yeah, I'm super interested in that.
I loved Fern, though, playing her chaotic neutral so well. Of like, I'd like to be one. Which, I got to pour one out for Ashley Johnson, one of my favorite people in D&D. But as someone who DMs, I was like, Ashley, you got to know what to do. I think the group even was like, okay, don't let Ashley go first in combat. But it can be overwhelming, especially when you're on the spot.
For sure.
But there was definitely like 4 or 5 minutes of silence, I'm exaggerating, but like, so what are you doing?
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely that was kind of an exacerbated moment, but I feel like almost everyone will have those moments at some point in the campaign. I mean, especially since she's a druid, they can literally do like a million things.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, that was funny.
Yeah.
And it was also funny when she was like, you know what? I don't care. I can just turn to a wolf anyway. He's like, you can? And she's like, yeah. And he's like, I'm going to do it. Actually, I'm not going to do it because I can't.
Yeah.
But
I don't have a spell slot left. Yeah. I don't have any wild shapes, actually. But I want you to know I could if I wanted to.
I was, before that whole interaction where she asked him to bite him happened, I was thinking to myself, like, if I was in a campaign with a werewolf, I feel like at some point I would be like, bro, bite me. Like, I want to be a werewolf. Like, what if we were all werewolves?
Yeah. So, especially if things get dire. Like, dude, we're going to die. Bite me.
And I mean, like, obviously it's going to have its pros and cons, right? But seemingly that is just like a buff in a way.
Watch the group just all, by the end of it, everyone is a werewolf.
That'd be great.
Yeah. And then it's like that one shot. Oh man.
Yeah. The
one shot where it's like the noble family and they're all Lycan 3 like runs in the family.
Song of like a Lorelei or something like that.
Yeah.
I think it
great
was
one shot, by the
way. It's a really good one. Now it's been years since I saw that, but I think that took place in Exandria. Now I'm not saying that like they probably weren't thinking about the canon.
Is this a deep connection now?
I don't know, but like maybe since that was like a whole noble family, right? Like maybe they're connected to this order of hunters that like keeps everyone in check or something.
That'd be really interesting.
Like
the order of hunters are themselves. Maybe it is the Gorgoni. Maybe they. Yeah, I mean, I bet they hunt. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I bet they are comprised of at least some werewolves. I mean, even if it's not the Gorgoni, whatever this order is.
Yeah.
But yeah, super fast.
Do you think Ira is going to be our big bad evil guy
of like the whole campaign?
Yeah.
No. I don't
Okay.
think so. I think he'll be like potentially of like this arc or
Yeah,
something,
like a
but probably
round
not
two
like the
maybe,
entire
or
campaign. I bet.
yeah.
Um.
I feel the same way. Yeah.
What was I gonna say? The only other thing I wanted to briefly touch on is just the whole what we found out at the end, the dream
Oh, right. Yeah.
that one, her mother was part of this study, but two, just the fact that this study even existed. Like this is a recurring thing. I think they mentioned that like it's once every. Was it connected to Ruidus or
I
no?
don't remember. She did say that she started getting the dream or the nightmare, and then her powers shortly followed after. So there seems to be like sort of like this coming of age. You hit puberty and suddenly you get psychic
Yeah,
powers, and you also start having this dream. It seems genetic, right? Since her mom had apparently had the
true,
same dream,
true.
which that's interesting that this dream has been so long lasting. I did like that Matt mentioned that she was in there for hours. Otherwise, it would have been
Hmm.
a bit too convenient. Of here's the
Right.
study on red
Found it.
storms. But
Um,
yeah, I don't know what to make of it.
so I found my notes on this part. So it was another thing that's interesting is people share the dream. So like people all around the world at the same time start having this dream. So why? But it happens on a 30-year celestial solstice. So it's not necessarily connected to Ruidus, but it is connected to something
Yeah,
that's happening. And
didn't she say that? Or now I'm wondering if I'm mixing up different characters. Did she say at some point earlier in the campaign like she has like a sense of, I don't know if it was like a voice or what it was, but she assumed like it was her mother?
yeah, yeah, she said that.
Okay. So her mother, did she say she's met her mother or hadn't met her mother?
That I don't remember.
Because I know it's her dad back home.
Hmm.
I've totally fogged now on where the mom
We
is.
may not even know. Like I don't know if she's ever mentioned
Okay.
like her relationship with her mom. Y'all
Because I
let us
think we,
know.
yeah, I think she did say like she, in her dream, or she has like a sense of like voice, maybe not an
Yeah,
audible
yeah,
voice,
I
but
do
like a
remember that.
sense of direction that she assumes to be her mom,
Hmm.
um, which is interesting.
And the voice is telling her to like run, right? Like run away from the storm.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. So where is her mother?
Yeah. It yeah, it's just interesting. Like what I'm trying to piece like why would people all around I mean, I guess we don't know it's all around Exandria, but I assume it's not just like 30 people in Drusar that start
Mhm.
having this dream. I'm assuming it's random people that on a 30-year celestial solstice. Like so something's happening. I think it might be Ruidus because the storm is red, right? Didn't that
Yeah.
mention? And
Right.
Ruidus is red.
Right.
So like maybe, and it's about to come to its 6-month werewolf peak. So like maybe all these things are like converging and I don't know. I can't wait to find out
It's the
more.
convergence.
Yeah.
Convergence of the spheres.
Conjunction of the spears.
Conjunction. What an idiot.
Moron.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, I just can't wait to find out more. It was obviously super interesting that pages were torn out. So who else is studying this? Is it someone
Forgot
else that
about
maybe
that.
is having the dream right now and they too went to
Yeah.
research? You know, are these
Yeah.
people like, is this like a call to heroism? Like these, I don't know why I just like however many people it is, let's just say 20 for the sake of this, that these 20 people having this dream, like they are the chosen ones in order to stop this coming catastrophe, or maybe they are like instruments to bring it to happening. Like, I don't know. They're all given powers for some reason.
Yeah. It's definitely interesting and a bit curious. Because the fact that her mom contributed to the study seems like this has been a long standing process. And I don't know, are we still in that 30-year period, or has something already happened and now we're leading up to the next 30? Because I remember how old Imogen is.
I think she's
Are we
late 20s, 20 something.
okay? Okay, I gotcha. Okay, yeah. So yeah,
So
I don't.
yeah, I mean, go ahead.
I'm just wondering, like, where does that go from there?
Yeah, I mean, my assumption is that if it's a 30-year cycle, this happened to her mom, and then whatever happened to her mom happened, and now it's been 30 years. And
Yeah,
so now it's happening again, except now it's happening to Imogen.
yeah, yeah. Okay. All All right.
Juicy.
Well, it seems like maybe the next few episodes will have a ball episode. Is the new Nobodies the name of the group?
Oh yeah. I don't know. They did seem to like, they didn't like outright confirm it, but they were all like, yeah, that's kind of cool. So I think maybe we'll like get that reveal at the ball moment. I feel like they might like save it for that. Or maybe they'll be like, hey, what should we do? And they tell us before. But
because Matt even had via Lord Asteros being like, hey, we really need like a band name. Just while you work with me. So we'll have that, and then it seems like traveling to the Heartmoor in the near future.
Right.
To do some stuff. So.
Right. Oh, sorry. One last tiny thing that I wanted to mention. In that Asteros meeting, he does mention that, I have friends at a library that, root out corruption. I'm going to send this stuff to them. A lot of people in the comments, and I'm sure a lot of people had this thought. It sounds like he's referring to the Cobalt Soul, which is an organization that has been in previous campaigns, that they're like these, they're like this organization of like monks and stuff that are, kind of think of them as like, not police, but like they root out corruption. Like they're there to investigate and, do good stuff.
Yeah, my wife is asking for something.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. That'd be really interesting to see if that's the case. So anyway, I gotta go.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, we're done anyway.
We got to do our thumbnail.
Oh, yeah. Any ideas?
Something Ira-esque or something like maybe Bathhouse-esque.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So.
I mean, what about Bathhouse? I think we did Ira last time, so.
Yeah, okay.
I don't know. What are you thinking for Bathhouse?
Maybe a face of agonizing pleasure from our deep tissue massages.
Okay. All right.
So. Yeah.
Okay.
Yours looks a little weird, but
people should be used to it by now.
Yeah. All right. Well, definitely, you guys let us know in the comments your thoughts on the episode, your favorite theories, and don't forget you can also follow us on our Twitter. We just had an awesome giveaway on the Twitter. It's at the Pixelists, and then also make sure you check out the podcast on Spotify.
Yeah.
So
can't wait to talk to you guys about Legend of Vox Machina.
Yeah. We'll catch you guys later.
All right. Bye, y'all.